It's time for what America really needs: faith, family, fitness, freedom. From the home of Pikes Peak, here are your hosts Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Welcome. This is 100.7 FM The Word. You are listening to Faith, Family, and Fitness with Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan. Today we are without Jason, but we do have a very special guest. We are going to be discussing the ballot amendment 79 that's currently on the Colorado ballots that's going up for vote. And our guest today, Dr. Catherine Wheeler, is a pro-life advocate, a former abortionist who shares insights on pro-life medical professionals and how they can stand up for their beliefs at work in the public square. Dr. Wheeler is an OBGYN physician who practiced in Salt Lake City, Utah for 24 years before moving to Colorado. In Utah, she was an originating shareholder of a private OBGYN practice. She developed midlife women's health clinics and educational programs at the University of Utah. She then developed a gynecology clinic with HCA St. Mark's Hospital. Earlier in her career, Dr. Wheeler performed induced abortions, but has since stopped this practice on moral grounds. Today, she is a frequent speaker for life and regarding the reality of abortion. She provides testimony at the Colorado legislature, provides informational opinion pieces and interviews for media, and serves with pro-life organizations to educate and advance the defense of preborn human life and to advocate for and provide support for women and families. Dr. Catherine Wheeler, welcome to Faith, Family, Fitness on 100.7 FM The Word.
Thank you. It's such a delight to be with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you here on the program, and I have to say I'm a little giddy because abortion has always been my number one issue, if you will. I guess if you had to pick like a issue that you're going to die, what mountain you're going to die on, this would be the issue that it's always been near and dear to my heart. And it's just an honor to be able to share the front lines with you this morning. So Dr. Wheeler, can you give the listeners here, just obviously those are my words, in full disclosure, just got this last minute off of a recent media interview you had. Can you share a little bit about your story, who you are, the work that you do, please?
Yeah, so as you said, I am an OBGYN physician. I no longer work in clinical medicine, but I have this great privilege of being in the pro-life community now, who I'm just shocked at how graceful and kind they are to a former abortionist. But my life is now completely involved in trying to educate people because people don't know what abortion is. And so what I'm called to is to gracefully go and speak with people in any way that I'm able to and just let them know about the development of the human being in the uterus and what abortion actually does, which is the brutal killing of a human being.
And it's interesting, your story. It reminds me a lot of the film that recently aired, was actually in the movie theaters with respect to the woman who used to work at Planned Parenthood and spoke out. Can you tell me a little bit about what sounds to me like kind of a Saul to Paul movement? So you were involved in the industry and you eventually came to a point where you realized that this was evil. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And you're speaking of Abby Johnson.
Yes.
So one of the many people, and we need to pray for an exodus out of the abortion industry. I was actually a private practitioner, so I did general practice. Abortion was a small part of what I did, but a very sad part of what I did. I, early in my practice, went in to do an abortion, and I was a non-Christian at the time. And literally in the middle of an abortion, the blinders came off. In order to do that, you have to not let yourself see the baby in what you're doing. You just literally put on blinders, think you're supposed to be doing this, that somehow you're helping women. And so you literally just kind of push yourself through it. And one day in the middle of it was just the blinders came off for no explainable reason, except that was the day it was supposed to happen. And I saw the baby for who the baby was and realized that I was just about to kill a human being. And I can't understand why. I didn't know that before. And I think a lot of it has to do with living in a secular world where abortion means nothing. And we convince people that we're helping people when really we're not. We're harming everybody in the process and killing a baby. So in that moment, I had to make a decision whether I stopped because I had just started, but that would have been dangerous for the woman. And so I had to choose myself between the baby and the woman, and I ended up finishing the abortion, but swearing I would never do another one. and I didn't. So it was 15 years later I became a Christian and had to really start thinking through in that safety with God what I had done and receive forgiveness. And through a very long process, get to the point where I could start talking about it because people need to know what's really true.
There's so much rhetoric, so much passionate talking points from those who are in support of abortion. And one of the biggest talking points that I hear is choice, 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 my body, my choice. Can you speak as a woman and as a former OBG, or I would assume are you currently an OBGYN licensed medical doctor? Or?
I'm licensed, but I don't do clinical medicine anymore.
You're a doctor, you're a woman. The women that are speaking on the issue of abortion are, well, first put me in my place, right? Because you don't have a uterus, you don't have an opinion. So I guess maybe I shouldn't even be hosting the show. But in seriousness, they claim that it's a woman's right, it's her body. Can you speak to that argument?
Yeah, well, first thing I'd say to you is that actually this is a crime against humanity. And so, yes, you do have a voice because you can see that innocent people are being killed and that women are being harmed and all of society is being harmed. So please use your voice. As far as choice, it only works if you're not destroying another life. So in order for this to say this is just a choice, we have to dance around, and what really is the issue is that this is an innocent living human being whose life is being taken. So that's actually the core issue of abortion. Again, choice really, it doesn't work. We don't get choices to take other people's lives. We don't have unlimited choices. I would say that a lot of these women are in just the most horrific circumstances. I think we have to acknowledge that. And we need to come alongside these women. We need to, and this isn't against the men, but a lot of times the men in these situations don't pick up their responsibility to this woman and this child they helped create. I mean, we need to be doing those pieces in society. Mm-hmm. But the answer, the core issue of abortion is abortion takes the life of a human being. And in what circumstance is that okay? It's not. And so we need to answer in other ways.
Beautifully said. And I think you bring up a really good point that's rarely spoken of is the responsibility that men need to take, because it takes two to tango. And when you have a man who fathers a child and excuses himself from that responsibility, he has the responsibility squarely lies on him as well. And they're cowards, and there's shame, I believe, and it's disgraceful that these men are not defending their children. And it's places, I believe, an unnecessary burden on the woman, because now she, as the carrier of life, is having to navigate this as well. We're going to get into a little bit more detail, especially we're going to discuss Amendment 79. We're just going to take a short break. You are listening to 100.7 FM The Word, Faith, Family, and Fitness.
Full Armor Sports Teams has a new facility for after-school youth programs. It's located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union, with 2 pools for swim lessons and swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting, conditioning, and more. Full Armor Sports Teams is a Christ-centered and family-oriented organization bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on after-school and homeschool programs, go to fullarmorsportsteams.com or call 719-629-SWIM.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness on 100.7 FM The Word. We have Dr. Wheeler, OBGYN medical doctor, pro-life activist. We are talking about her story, why she's on the front lines of the culture war against the evil that is known as abortion. And she just gave us some interesting insights into, well, not insights, but actually objections to some of the arguments that the pro-choice movement makes. And I want to get now into the Amendment 79 that's currently on the ballot. Colorado right now is going to be voting on Amendment 79 that would preserve the, well, again, I'm going to read from the pro-choice website because I think their words are interesting and I think it will lead to interesting conversation. They state that Amendment 79 would preserve the right to abortion in the Colorado State Constitution, and it would bar the state or any local government in the state from blocking the right to an abortion. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Wheeler, can you give the listeners the current state of abortion as it stands right now in Colorado and what Amendment 79 proposes to do?
Yeah, so Colorado has one of the most so-called progressive, we'd call it reckless and extreme abortion laws in the country and in the world. Abortion here is allowed all the way through the pregnancy for any reason. Most of them, just like everywhere else, most of them are for financial and social reasons. It allows Well, essentially, it's an unregulated industry. So unlike all other healthcare, there's no licensure of the facilities, there's no inspection, there's no regulation. It's literally a free-for-all. We don't get to know what's happening there and what their errors are. There's no protection for women. What we have right now is parental notification and a ban on taxpayer funding. That's the only restriction in Colorado. And those two would be taken away with this amendment. So what the amendment does is it puts current Colorado law, which, one more thing, our law also has removed all rights from preborn human beings, from the fetus.
Is that in the amendment or is that currently?
That's the current law as of 2 years ago. They intentionally removed all rights to human beings before birth. And so that will be put in the Constitution. What that means is you cannot make any changes to Colorado law without again changing the Constitution. So it effectively bans all regulation of the abortion in Colorado.
So if there was a nationwide ban, let's say, hypothetically speaking, the Trump administration gets elected and somehow they finagle a federal abortion ban, how would the passing of 79 impact that federal ban?
I don't know that as a non-attorney.
Okay.
So I don't want to conjecture on that.
No, that's fair. I guess the reason I asked the question is it sounds to me like the pro-choice movement, if we can call them that, are basically putting safeguards in place, legal safeguards to prevent, to secure Colorado as a safe haven for the death of children, is my interpretation. But again, neither of us are attorneys. Now, you mentioned there's taxpayer funding that the amendment provides. Can you speak on that?
Yes, so currently there's a ban on taxpayer funding except for life of the mother, rape, and incest. And so what the goal, as you said, they want to be a safe haven. They actually want to be an abortion destination state even more. So if you remove taxpayer ban, then they can expand abortion programs. This has already been done in other states like Oregon. So that actually can be outside of Medicaid. You can expand programs, including for non-state residents. And so they would then most likely, almost certainly, have these programs available for abortion through all 9 months.
So are you telling me that Jane from Louisiana, let's say Jane's coming from a state where abortion's illegal. She comes to Colorado to have this procedure done. She has Medicaid. Her Medicaid would cover her abortion procedures in Colorado if this amendment passes?
No, this would open the door for actually Colorado to fund that through taxpayer funding, through expanded abortion programs, which is what's been done in Oregon.
So residents of Colorado would basically be able to have this paid for by tax dollars?
Residents and non-residents. It would open the door for that. We don't know where they're going to go, but we do know that the Colorado legislature is very pro-abortion in every way. And so we are assuming, and it is a reasonable assumption, that this is opening the door for them to expand it, including for non-state residents, which 29% of our abortions are for out-of-state residents.
I want to back up a little bit. I moved here in 2016. I fell in love with this state as a kid. This is such a beautiful place. I read that you're from Salt Lake City. Did you come to Colorado because it's gorgeous and it's beautiful and it's awesome as well?
It is gorgeous. I came here for the first time in junior high school from Rhode Island and fell in love and had to live here. So I went to Colorado State undergraduate, left for all of the other training and career, and then at the end of my career came back here.
How did we get to this point in such a beautiful state? Why is the state legislature so pro-abortion? Do you have any insights into why that is? I mean, you've spoken to these people. What's the deal?
Yeah, I can't answer for them, but all I can say is it's been taken over by an ideology. And we've seen that ideology marching across the country. And this whole idea that started before Roe versus Wade, that it's kind of like an anything goes, don't tell me what to do. We can do whatever we want to, no matter the impact. It's sad, but it's an ideology of how we live in the world, which is different than the way that you and I think. So we have to see it as a worldview. And in their worldview, they can't understand our worldview because our worldview is deeply grounded in logic as opposed to feelings.
Is that the true battle? There's a battle of worldviews. They're of the view that there is do what thou wilt, my body, my choice. There is no God. I do whatever I want. Absolute freedom. And then our worldview that we've submitted to the God of the Bible.
In my view, absolutely, because I've lived both sides of that. And so that, for me, was a lot of my becoming a new person, was getting grounded in what's actually true, as opposed to, because abortion flows out of feeling really bad for people and getting the wrong answer because you've got a worldview that says we should have a good life on this earth, right? And this ideology that comes from feminism, that for women, what matters about us now is our career, and that children and family get in the way. It's a false ideology, and it's very harmful.
And I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but I think culturally abortion is an acceptable idea because people prescribe to being able to have sex without consequence, that sexuality is recreation and that it's not a covenant between husband and wife. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's definitely, again, on this other side of coming out of a secular and very feminist worldview. I've come to exactly what you just said. And, even as an OBGYN, before I was a Christian, it was absolutely heartbreaking to me to see just where the sexual revolution went, because I grew up during that time when that was all starting to happen, just before Roe versus Wade, and seeing what was promised to women is that you can be just like men. And I'm sorry, we're not just like men. And for us, the consequences of sex outside of a committed relationship are devastating. I think a lot of what we're seeing with depression, suicidality, anxiety in women, I think a lot of that is related to these serial relationships that are non-committed. And for women, like men may feel good about it, but for women, what I saw in my patients and in myself was just a loss of self-identity and self-worth, and a spiral down to worse and worse relationship.
The sexual revolution was a giant mousetrap for women, sounds like.
Well, it was. And abortion promised us that we could have our life back if we got pregnant, but it didn't. What it gave us was abandonment. It gave, the licensure to have sex. And then the women are usually we're the ones who get pregnant. We're the ones more vulnerable to infection, and we're the ones more vulnerable to the emotional damage, I think, of sex outside of a committed relationship. Absolutely.
And then, so we talked about the amendment. It's going to allow for tax dollars to subsidize these procedures. It also creates a provision regarding parental notification. Can you please speak to that, Doctor?
Yeah, so that's one of the things in the Colorado law right now, is that parents have to be notified. This would remove that under a little word called nothing may deny, impede, or discriminate against the right to abortion. And that impede is the magic word that the American College of OBGYN uses to say that there should be no barriers that impede to access to abortion. And they clearly list out that any limitation of gestational age or requiring parents to be involved impedes abortion access. And what that opens the door to, if you can imagine, girls can get pregnant, as soon as they're having periods. Sometimes even before, if they ovulate first. And so you could have a girl as young as 12 or even younger, 15, 16 would be more typical. But their parents have no idea that she's pregnant, and somebody is taking her for an abortion without them even getting to speak into their own daughter's life. And then if she has a complication, if she's depressed afterwards, which is common, they don't know what happened. They don't know how to help her, and it leaves her alone and abandoned and very vulnerable to coercion from people that she thought cared. And the other thing that it opens the door to is protecting abusers who can just give a woman a pill to force them to have an abortion, or hide a pill in something to force them to have an abortion. So it really opens the practice to a lot of dangerous things for young girls.
The culture does not like the narrative or the relationship, the factual relationship between the abortion industry and the sex trafficking epidemic that we're currently experiencing in this country. I think our listeners know at this point that the largest, fastest growing black market enterprise is sexual human trafficking. It ties into the open borders. It's one of the greatest evils of our time. And I would be remiss if I didn't have a conversation with you on the relationship between abortion procedures and sex human trafficking. I think it was a couple years back, James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, had released a video where he posed as a pimp, bringing in an underage girl into a Planned Parenthood facility, and basically had the abortion done for her, which, as you can imagine, in that type of business, abortion is a very useful tool, for lack of a better word. Do you have any opinions, or can you speak to that, the relationship between sex human trafficking and this parental notification? It almost feels like, Doctor, that the Colorado State Legislature, or I say this amendment, Amendment 79, is going to enable human sex trafficking to grow. What do you think?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It definitely creates more and more opportunity for people to circumvent family members who should be notified. This is an opportunity to identify people who are trafficked when they enter
Bingo.
into the medical system. And unfortunately, if they don't notify the parents have no idea. I don't think that people understand how many young women in high schools and even junior high schools are being trafficked in neighborhoods. I mean, just neighborhoods throughout the whole country. I mean, it's unfathomable. I live in a teeny tiny town, and somebody actually was arrested for trafficking in the town next to me about a year and a half ago. It's happening everywhere, and a lot of the parents don't know, so we're missing an opportunity at a medical system to identify people. And we know that from this video you've talked about and from other sources that Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics are not identifying trafficking victims and intervening on their behalf. It's absolutely tragic. And yes, this does increase opportunity for trafficking.
You know, we're talking about Amendment 79, we're talking about legislation, we're talking about ballot initiatives, you know, and unfortunately we live in a dying culture where I would not be surprised if this gets passed and Colorado just continues in the pathway of California, New York, just that death spiral. What do we do as fathers, as mothers, as the people of God? How do we transform the culture so that we don't need to worry about ballot initiatives, because at the grassroots level, at ground zero, there's a culture of life? What can we do to promote a culture of life?
Yeah, so I'm an optimist. I think this can be defeated in Colorado. We know that without us educating people, which is what we're doing, that there was a 60% chance that this would pass at the very beginning of the summer. And if we educate people, it goes down to 47%. The problem is people don't know. And so once you help them to understand what this would mean on the ground in real life, most people are like, no, I'm not for abortion all the way to the due date. I'm not for young girls being vulnerable. So the number one thing we can do is talk to people about it. Get out to vote, make sure you're voting, but get your friends and family out to vote, help them to understand what this is. You know, the other thing I say, there's so many ways that we can make abortion not so-called needed or normalized. But one of the biggest things that has happened is this deep roots of abortion has happened because of a silence, because of one narrative. The media pushes the abortion narrative. And we have to have these conversations with our young people, with our adolescents, of what abortion is, that an unplanned pregnancy is not the most awful thing in the world. We will help you. Mm-hmm. We will come alongside you, provide resources. We love you. We'll take care of you. You can do this.
Wow. Dr. Wheeler, God bless you. Thank you for being on the front lines of this culture war. I'm going to be praying for you. I salute you. I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. Any last words before we close?
In my heart, I know that abortion, that Coloradans are actually pro-life. I know that this state is a culture of life state if people would just think about what they really believed about the preborn baby. So my encouragement is, Colorado, you are a pro-life state.
Amen. You have been listening to Faith Family Fitness on 100.7 The Word. Make sure you go out and vote no on Amendment 79. Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. God bless you.
Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you too.
Peace.